Good day, everybody. How's it going out there? Well, as we continue to chug along and as conventions continue to sit on the sidelines for a little while longer, there are some that are going to be active, Megaplex, and there's been some that have been held so far this year. Obviously, as COVID Delta variant starts to tick up in the United States, on the U.S. side, it's hard to determine whether or not furry conventions are going to be able to continue on into the fall and winter without any honest repercussions or delays or cancellations. So keep an eye on that and keep an eye on this channel and Global Furry Television for that kind of news. Global Furry Television has been doing an excellent job on keeping up on those particular kind of events. So, and they're catching up with me in subscribers. They may pass me someday, and I will give them a round of applause when they do so. I will continue to promote their content. It's very good content. So feel free to give them a subscription up in the thing above. Today we're going to talk about an issue that came up, around the time when Anthrocon was supposed to be kind of going on, and apparently an issue had come up behind closed doors with a particular convention chair, and they had to share an issue that was going on. And that is a dealer from the dealer's den had taken money to commission a product, and they basically didn't return. They didn't fulfill their side of the bargain for the money that they were paid. It's a story as kind of as old as time in the furry fandom. I've been in the furry fandom since 2001. And stories about people getting swindled on the internet have been relatively commonplace. However, in the last, few years or so, I've been starting to hear more stories, both from convention attendees and now from a board member of a convention, about this sort of unscrupulous business behavior spreading into the dealers' dens. It's an unfortunate thing, and it's something that we absolutely need to address as a community. And I mean everybody in the community, not just the people down here, but also the people up with the power over our dealers' dens and other such matters. I wrote a whole article about this. It's in the link in the description below. But obviously I'm going to just talk about the situation and how it was discussed and go over a little thoughts about it here. So that is the wrong thing. We want this thing here. So Uncle Kage, who is the chair of the board at Anthrocon, talked about a particular situation that came to his head here. So here we go. Okay, I just deleted a long thread where I detailed how an unscrupulous fursuit maker made Anthrocon look bad in the eyes of our friends in Pittsburgh. I intend to demonstrate that the whole, well, that's just how furries do business affects all of us, not just one or two. I think I was a little naive in that I did not expect to start receiving offers from people to take care of it for me. That's not cool, guys. Nowhere near it, and nowhere near what I thought was trying to start a conversation on. If that's on your mind right now, just stop it. You're gonna make him an offer he can't refuse. It's not cool, man. Don't do that. Don't threaten the well-being of the person. The person obviously is they have been taken care of, right? He already took care of the situation because obviously he's discussing it. Yes, let's figure out what the situation is, shall we? So I'm going to start again. I expect people to discuss it like adults. Oops, I kind of jumped the gun there. We have heard horror stories of people commissioning fursuits and getting burned one way or another. And we've heard many of these stories that we just shrug and goes, that's just how we are. I will interject here and say I don't think I've heard any furry say this is how we are when it comes to these situations. I've heard the situations of, I've heard it happen, like I've heard empathetic people who would go, well, this is something that can happen, and and unfortunately, it's not the first time I've heard stories like this, and people will talk about those other stories and talk about things like artists beware and things like that. I don't think anyone thinks that that's what furries are. I think that furries understand that there are some people out there who will use people's enthrallment with fandom, with the idea of buying fandom swag, to kind of do ne'er-do-well and things like that. And that it is a more common occurrence than people would like to talk about. In fact, I think it's one of the most common abuses in the fandom is this sort of, larceny kind of thing. So it is a very important topic to discuss. So let's continue on with what Kage here is saying in this thread here. My point is, that is not how we are. So he said he heard those things just so he could counterpoint it. Leadership does that. Just to it's blemishes. I'm a technical person, so I understand that rhetoric needs like a straw man argument, and then you can counter the straw man that you just created in your head, and it looks very good rhetorically. Shut up, Rue. Just read my quote. At least I'm speaking in my normal voice when I do an interjection, and I have his voice, so when I'm reading his thing, you know when I'm doing one thing or the other. So at least I have that down. All right, so let's... Shut up, Rue. Read my quote. Anyways, my point is this is not how we are, and we shouldn't just stand by and shrug, because it makes our entire community look bad. And worse, there's scores of very honest artists out there whose reputations are being destroyed by just a few. I would take this one step further and go that if a person who spends money on a person who is at a dealer stand or on the internet who takes their money and runs, or takes their money and doesn't perform good works with it, is siphoning money away from a furry who's doing honest and good business. It's not just that the reputation of the furries are harmed, it literally is stealing from people who will do the work, right? If somebody says, if there's two artists at two different tables, and one is saying, I'm gonna do art for you for $100, and there's another one who's also gonna do art for you for $100, and you pay one of the artists $100, and that artist ends up not doing anything, right? And not getting you a product within like 5 years, or like just never giving you a product at all. That $100 that you had burning a hole in your pocket could have went to that other artist who, might have had a great work ethic, right? And if enough people and that's the thing with popularity too, is that popularity, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because popularity can come from integrity, right? So if an artist is popular, maybe they're known for getting their work done on time, and maybe they're well known for the good quality of work that they do. And so they gather a reputation so that if you pay them, they'll give you good things in return. It's sort of like that whole thing. But popularity, if it corrupts, can make people, if popularity corrupts an individual, they can eventually become entitled. And if they become entitled, then they could use that popularity to siphon money for themselves and then just basically become corrupt. So it's one of those problems there too. Whereas somebody who doesn't have a good reputation, maybe they're just, trying to start off as a business, but then it's harder for them to earn money. So if you have two unknown artists, in Artist Alley, and you pay $100 and you skip that other one, basically you've just if that $100 went to that other artist and they could have become a great artist if more money had gone to that one artist instead of the scammy one, then the scammy one not only stole money from you, right? They stole an opportunity for the ethical artist, who was also relatively unknown, to have an opportunity to expand their business. So it's not just, it is, and I would absolutely agree with Kage here. It is absolutely a thing where bad business does not just impact one person. You wonder why capitalism has sort of become a meme, right? It's because people scam each other out of money and they go, oh, capitalism. Or, people try to see how much they can, how much money they can siphon out of a person before, they basically start shopping around. And, insurance companies do this all the time. And then, people are trying to extract as much money out of each individual as possible. And then so that they are kind of forced to go to work for it. And it kind of feels like an endless cycle. But this kind of abuse doesn't help relieve us from the cycle. It instead enforces the cycle even worse, right? It makes capitalism even worse, as it already is. I know, Gen Z, I know you say it can't get much worse, but people scamming other people does make it just a bit worse. Because then it's like they feel like they feel like they worked for their boss for little to nothing, and then they gave that little to nothing to somebody who literally did nothing, right? You're scamming people who barely, who are trying to get by, and it sucks. So it's a good. I'm glad that he's talking about this. As sassy as I can be sometimes, I'm absolutely glad he's talking about this. I'm glad leadership actually took the time to talk about this. All right, so what can we do? Would a review site work? An accredited program? A business association? A guild system? It's got to be something because it's gone on long enough. Damn right it has. It's gone on for like decades. And as for the fursuit builder who gave us the black eye to start with, leave that to those who are involved. I probably shouldn't even have my nose in it, but because it's my reputation that got bruised too, the Duggo treatment is not out of the question. And I was praising him, and now I'm going to criticize again. It's like a back and forth thing. It's a back and forth thing. So because it impacted you, you're going to talk about it. So, So there's other tweets behind this. It sounded like a non-furry went to Anthrocon's dealer's den and commissioned some individual who he redacted later on. Apparently his original tweet might have had the name of the person, but then he kind of redacted it and reposted without the name just to kind of keep the harassment down. But the individual who was involved sounds like he took money from a non-fur Pittsburghian who was attending Anthrocon and basically took the money and ran, right? They did not fulfill their end of the agreement of the financial transaction. So because of this, we end up finding that, Kage gets talked to, like the convention chair gets a talking to. And I'm guessing that this Pittsburghian is just some random citizen. I'm guessing they are somewhat of a power broker or have some sort of clout within the community of Pittsburgh, because that's what it sounded like to me in the thread. And so to me, it's like, yeah, it's like, and now it's like Kage's getting berated by somebody, like that. It kind of like does put a black eye on him. But we should have been discussing this before it impacts you, right? And unfortunately, with our species and how it is, nobody cares about anything until it impacts them directly. And everyone's guilty of this in some way, shape, or form. And there it is in black and white, right? So now it has impacted them. And now they're talking about it. So now we're talking about it. It's funny how the world works like that, right? I'm gonna go off on a little bit of a tangent here on this, which I normally do, so you're used to it. And speaking of non-furries getting involved in the furry fandom, there was an issue of a non-furry trying to get a fursuit for their daughter a few years back when we had conventions. And this video was released right when Anthrocon was going on, so I remember seeing this video at Anthrocon. And it was the Insane Clown Posse's lead man, Violent J, and their daughter Rose. Was it Rose? I think it was Rose. It's one of those R names. I'm terrible with names, my apologies. She's not Violence J's daughter, though. She is her own person. She's her own person. I don't know if she's still a furry or not. But the video basically talked about how Violent J was basically scammed by a site which was promoting these fursuits that they were going to create for people using the photos of other artists, of other fursuit makers, and then putting them on there, and then basically shipping them a, like, Maskimals, not even Maskimals, just like a poor quality fursuit. It's not quality, right? And in Violent J's words, it's not quality. It's not, it's broke. Broke like my broke ass dad. This is a fun video. I will see if I'll put the card on that if I don't get lazy. It's up there in the title cards. But basically, I will give DHgate or whoever the thing was this. I will give them this caveat. At least when Violent J paid them money, the site in question gave them a product. At least the site gave them something. Anything. It's like, here's $500. Give me a fursuit. Oh, it was $500. Here's what $500 will buy you. A big old freaking thing that looks like one of those beanbag chairs, like one of those little like big old freaking things, and like a big head that looks as big as a bobblehead, and yet you can like you'll be able to look out like the bottom of the neck or something, like a big old freaking like Chungus suit. All right, you ordered Bugs Bunny, you got Chungus. So, like, but at least they got something. And, luckily for us furries, the people who were the scam artists in that case were not within the fandom. Picture this. Picture an alternate universe where Violent J does commission a furry artist, a fursuit maker, if you were. And he commissions them and pays them money to get their daughter a quality fursuit. And imagine if they didn't return a product. Imagine if what happened in Pittsburgh, or not even only Pittsburgh, it's been happening in other places too. Let's talk about, that was from another video. Let's look at this example. This was from Midwest Fur Fest 2018, and this was an artist beware about a commission that happened at the dealer's den there. Buyers beware. I could finally make this post and the bank closed the cases in my favor. Avoid the maker split suits. I recommended them. I commissioned them for a head and body suit at MFF last year. So that would have been MFF 2018. In the amount of $1,340. They only communicated once every few months and would never provide any work in progresses or actual updates to progress. Finally, they tried saying they would deliver the head in person through an unnamed friend at AC on July 8th, nearly 8 months later. Still, they would not send any updates, and when the suit never arrived, they made excuses to get out any blame. Finally, after trying to resolve with them to no response, I had to go through my bank a nearly 2-month process of not knowing whether my hard-earned money would come back. So please do not commission or buy from Split Suits. So, and it's not just this otter person, a personal friend of mine named Night Fox, who's a rabbit, who was trying to get a rabbit fursuit. Ended up getting one from Lemon Brat instead after, they also, at the same convention on the same year, did the same maker and basically ended up with the same issue. And I think it's had a negative impact on their viewing of fursuiting in general because of that, right? And so it is important that we make sure that, it's not just an Anthrocon problem. And then if that's what you got from the earlier part of this video, throw that out your mind. Anthrocon is the only one with the gall to address it, though that gall comes with risks. The pseudo-journalist in me loves the fact that someone's being transparent with issues and that leadership is being transparent with issues. But that also comes with risk because, the little legalese kind of like lawyer watching person also kind of goes, well, there's a risk to that. And if someone gets swindled at Anthrocon's dealer den in the future, like that little thread that, Kage made here is basically Exhibit A. If Anthrocon's dealer den does nothing to try to mitigate this situation that they claimed happened in the future and took no steps to try to prevent a future situation from happening, then if a commissioner is going to go, you know what, I'm going to hold Anthrocon liable. This is Exhibit A in their case. So just saying, I mean, I'm glad that they came forward with it. That them coming forward, it does provide some risks, and hopefully, they do take steps to try to mitigate kind of things like that. And I talk about that kind of stuff in the article listed there. Obviously, there's things that we as a community can do to also help. It's not about trying to take the nuclear option, which is kind of what a lawsuit would be. Try to figure out ways to help defend against unscrupulous behavior in a better means. Like on the and by the way, it's not just like artists who steal from commissioners. Commissioners sometimes steal from artists, and like they try to swindle free stuff out of them. They try to do this haggling nonsense, or they say, well, I didn't like this product, give me free swag, right? They can sometimes abuse that relationship. Things like that can happen. And, unfortunately, this sort of conflict between people who are selling products and trying to make a living out of the fandom are conflicting with people who, just want the fandom to give them free stuff. Or just because and think that the fandom is a thing where people are not trying to make a living, and the world we live in isn't one where we're trying to make a living and want to try to lower the standards as much as they possibly can. And this is a fight that always occurs. That's what the markets can do sometimes, is it can make, and it's always brutal, and it's always like this back and forth, and that's something that's going to be, I don't foresee that changing anytime in the future. It's probably going to be a thing until after the day I die, and probably well beyond that. Trading stuff, trading money, trading things for things, bartering, and defrauding and theft, and trying to get as much out of things for as little money as possible or little resources as possible, and trying to play this nonsense games has always been a thing throughout human history. And I don't foresee that changing in the future. But it doesn't necessarily mean that furries, you want to try to solve the capitalist problem? Here you go, right? How do we lower the amount of times that fraud can happen? How do we make it so that, that people understand, what good trade means, right? That good trading goods and services and the negative impacts that defrauding on one side or the other can have on the markets as a whole. Because unfortunately, if a buyer gets stiffed, right, they're not gonna be that. And going back to the example that I was talking about earlier with Violent J, what if Violent J had commissioned a furry in an alternate universe and that furry stiffed them? What if that first video about his daughter's introduction to the snake busters was not pointed at some fraudulent website from some fraudulent, like I think a Chinese knockoff fursuit website. What if it wasn't pointed at them? What if it was pointed at us? Saying, I tried to get my daughter a fursuit, and I went down there and I got one from a legitimate furry, seemed legitimate as all heck, and I didn't get a dang thing, right? I put my money in there. I'm broke. I don't have that much money anymore. My music career's dead by a decade. And I put my little money I have left for my daughter's passion, and these guys just up and ran with it. Imagine if the person you were doing business with has more power than you think they do. Just imagine it. Treat every customer you have with respect. Treat every customer with respect, even if they don't deserve it, but don't let them be disrespect, right? So it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, it's a relationship. It's a platonic relationship. And I think that in a fandom that, you know, tries to open its arms to people, it could sometimes hug people who have a knife in their hand. They're going to stab you in the back with it. So you always have to be aware, right? This is why business people wear suits. This is why people have platonic relationships, because they understand that at the end of the day, there's a goal of what is, you know, we're trying to accomplish, and if you let people get too close, then they will try to use that alleged closeness to harm you, to try to get stuff out of you, right? Donald Trump uses that method all the time, right? He's like, I'm a celebrity, look at me, I'm a big guy, and then I'm not going to pay my caterers, right? That sort of manipulation is something you've got to be aware of, because it is, you know, it is that kind of gray area, you know, sort of pseudo theft kind of thing, you know, where it's petty enough where the government doesn't really care, but it's big enough where it really impacts the hardworking the hardworking person, right? That it's petty enough where governments don't care, but it's grand enough where it can have a major impact on the life of a furry who is working their arse off for very little money. Because furries I think are some of the most exploited people for the labor. I certainly exploit them for my labor quite much. I live in Buffalo, for crying out loud. So that being said, it is something that needs to be addressed. There was a lot of discussion in the article in the description below, so I'll leave you to that. This is more spoken candor about the subject. If you have any horror stories about you being on the bad side of a deal, let me know in the comment section below. Kick a comment in that comment section. Kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. We're at almost 800, guys. We're 8/10 the way there. 4/5. We're 4/5 the way there. Only 1/5 more, and we can go 1,000. Get to 1,000, baby. You could do it. You could do it. I believe in you. I'm just terrible at marketing, and I always will be. Sorry. It's just how I am. Just how I am, man. Whew. This is a big topic, and it's certainly not going to be one that goes away. So I do also, before I go, there is one channel that I want you to take a look at if you're interested in the kind of like, not like kind of like, I would say kind of social conflicts and social media and stuff like that. So quote unquote drama, right? But she also does really good work on sort of business exploitations and artist beware kind of stuff. There's a video that I watched just before I recorded this one. I believe, let me see if I can find the name of it.
Hey, what up, it's Roy?
Simple Nicks. And I have the video right here. It's called the Raver Neon Light Situation. So this was about a furry who was kind of kind of being unscrupulous on both sides of the transactions. He was both a fursuit buyer and a fursuit seller, and very addicted to buying fursuits. And so, like, and then she goes into the whole thing, and she does a really, really good job discussing the situation. That I wasn't even aware of. I wasn't aware of this person who was buying like these expensive fursuits on the regular, and then selling them, and then like, kind of being a little bit swindly with their behavior. So I'm going to leave that video in the card up above, and you should go look at Simple Nicks and give them a look, and I think that you would like their content. They got 10,000 subscribers, so they're already more well-known than I am. They do good content. I think they've been doing some good nonfiction content, and you should go give them a look. So thank you very much for watching. I know there's a large end card, but I remembered that thing just as soon as I was about to close out, because I improv, and that's what I do. That's what you like. That's what you come here for. Unlike Simple Nicks, who probably does a lot more scripting. Anyways, thank you very much. Have a good one.